Well, the holidays have come and gone once again, but if you've forgotten to get that special someone in your life a gift, well, Mint Mobile is extending their holiday offer of half off unlimited wireless. So here's the idea. You get it now, you call it an early present for next year. What do you have to lose? Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Limited time 50% off regular price for new customers. Upfront payment required. $45 for 3 months, $90 for 6 months, or $180 for 12-month plan. Taxes and fees extra. Speeds may slow after 50 gigabytes per month when network is busy. See terms.
Welcome to the HCI family of podcasts. We're your source for personal, professional, and organizational growth and development. We share our own original research, explore industry trends, and interview executives and thought leaders from across the globe. Join us for practitioner-oriented content around all things leadership, HR, talent management, organizational development, and change management. Maximize your personal and organizational potential with the HCI family of podcasts.
AI is incredible. It can teach you how to fry an egg and even write a poem, pirate style. Yarr! But it knows nothing about your work. Slackbot is different. It doesn't just know the facts. It knows your schedule. It can turn a brainstorm into a brief. And it doesn't need to be taught. Because Slackbot isn't just another AI. It's AI that knows your work as well as you do. Visit slack.com/meet Slackbot to learn more.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. Stop waiting around for the perfect candidate. Instead, use Indeed sponsored jobs to find the right people with the right skills fast. It's a simple way to make sure your listing is the first candidates see. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs have 4 times more applicants than non-sponsored jobs. So go build your dream team today with Indeed. Get a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
Cyndi Wenninghoff, welcome to the conversation today.
Thank you so much. It's good to be here.
It is a pleasure to be with you. You're joining us from Omaha, Nebraska. I'm south of Salt Lake City in Utah. And today we're going to be talking about organizational culture, specifically creating a magnetic culture within your organization. That's something you spend a lot of your time and energy talking about. So I'm excited to have a chance to sit down with you, to pick your brain, have you share your insights with me and my audience today. As we get started, I wanted to share Cyndi's bio with everybody. Cyndi Wenninghoff has over 10 years of experience working in human resources in various industries, including advertising, insurance, and technology. She currently works as the Director of Employee Success at Quantum Workplace in Omaha, where she oversees employee engagement, recruiting, DE&I, onboarding, and retention efforts. Previously, she was the Director of Human Resources at SilverStone Group, a Hub international company, as well as the Head of Talent at Bailey Lauerman. Outside of work, she is a member of the Human Resource Association of Midlands and the Society for Human Resource Management. Additionally, she serves as the Director-elect for the HR Nebraska State Council. She's also the Communications and PR Coordinator for RISE Omaha, a motivating speaking series designed to inspire and unite women throughout Omaha, helping to connect women leaders and build the next generation of female business leaders. What a wonderful background. There's so much that you've done and accomplished and so many things you're currently doing. It's a real pleasure to sit down with you. Anything you would like to highlight before we dive on in?
Yes, I think one of the unique things of my background, my career is I work currently for an HR technology company, Quantum Workplace, but I've also been a customer of Quantum Workplace, and I've also participated in our Best Places to Work contests in many organizations that I've worked at previously. And so I've always just kind of looked for organizations where they focus on their people, they focus on the talent that they have, there's strong development in play with their managers. And those are kind of the bits and pieces we'll talk about today about how to build a magnetic culture and how to build more of like a thriving team. And so it's nice, like I've kind of been there, done that. I'm doing it now at my current company. And then I'm also the HR internally for an HR technology company that sells to HR. So it's kind of a unique perspective in that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. Great background. And you talked about magnetic culture. Like culture is something that gets talked about all the time.
Yeah.
And positive, healthy, engaging cultures is what I think everyone wants. You want to avoid toxic culture, harmful, negative culture. What is it about magnetic culture? Like, what does that mean to you?
Yeah. I picture, the meaning of a magnetic culture of a team that's really thriving, where, people are performing at a really high level, they're connected to each other, and you can't really have one without the other. And at Quantum Workplace, we've been studying this for over 20 years, and there's a pattern that's pretty clear. And we're seeing that when performance and connection are working together, they're reinforcing with each other, that's when teams are really hitting their stride. And so when you can kind of look at it opposite. So when performance is really strong and maybe connection is weak, you tend to get burnt out. Like your people might produce, but maybe that doesn't persist for a long period of time.
Yeah, it's not sustainable. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And so differently, when the connection is strong, like there's a really strong buy-in to the mission, the work you're doing, and performance is weak. It might feel nice. It might be, comfortable place to work, but the results might stall. And then when both are weak, you have, what we see in probably headlines: turnover, people are frustrated, there's low energy. And so when we talk about magnetic cultures or thriving teams, we're not talking about, you mentioned a few of these of what we would be saying we're talking about, but we're not talking about comfort. We're not talking about perks. We're not really even talking about happiness necessarily. It's the energy, it's the ownership, it's the outcomes, and it's where people care, they contribute, and they're looking to improve. And so magnetic culture, to me, going back to your original question, really means that people are aligned, they're empowered, they're growing, and they're valued.
Yeah, I like that. And I like the symbolism of magnets, right?
Right.
Absolutely. People are attracted to each other, to the mission, to the values, to the core purpose of the organization. There's alignment. If you have magnets out of alignment, they actually push each other apart, right?
Right.
They're not attracted to each other. And that connection piece, just like community connection, like we're human animals, like we're social animals. We need connection. And so creating, I just really like this the symbolism of and the metaphor of magnet in this context, because it really does encapsulate a lot of different really important principles, I think, that you outlined. So I really appreciate that. One of the challenges we have in the modern world of work, and this is going to continue to shift and we're going to have to adjust, but we live in a world of more remote work, of more hybrid work. And at least on the surface, there's a lot of question around what does that mean for connection? What does that mean for shared meaning and purpose as a work community? This has been a big part of the driving force behind a lot of CEOs' return to office mandates, where they just have this sense. I don't know, if they have data to support it, but they have the sense that they need that connection. They need people to collaborate together in person. They need that energy that they feel like really is only going to manifest if people are together in the office. And so that, it's an ongoing debate, right? And I think there's a growing body of research that kind of addresses it, but certainly the trend in the corporate world is to do more back to office, less fully remote, maybe hybrid, and having more structure around how work is designed for individuals within organizations. How does that fit, like that whole dynamic? How does that fit within this magnetic culture kind of construct?
Yeah, I think, there's a few things that come to mind. We do a ton of research as well. And one of the things that employees care about, probably in their top 5, is flexibility. And that's a big word, right? And it means different things to different people. But what we saw, kind of the top response, was mainly flexibility to do their things in life. And that might mean like being able to take their kids to school and pick them up every day. And that's what really matters to employees. And yeah, I see, over the past, 12 to 18 months, there's definitely been a shift of organizations trying to strike that balance of listening to their employees and also then making sure everyone is performing. And we all, live through the past 4 or 5 years in organizations where during the pandemic, it was really all about the employee. And now leaders are just like what you were talking about. They know they still need to listen to their employees, but they also have an emphasis on performance and efficiency and all of that. And then increasingly, just like you said, there's a push to get back to the office. And then kind of all of that at the same time, people leaders And that's like where we truly believe a lot of this impact can happen, is that leaders are then asking or raising their hands, needing help. They want to know how to be a good leader. And then CHROs are being asked to then make sure their people are equipped to kind of handle all of this, right? We're seeing, boomers retiring, then there's new leaders coming in. And so where I believe a lot of that comes into play is the different things we talked about with the magnetic culture and like how you build that team. I always like to think about like the best team I've ever been on. And I would love for you to like kind of picture that yourself. But some things that stand out to me when I think about the best team I've been on is like the energy, the trust. Everyone, seemed to know what mattered, and there wasn't a lot of hand holding. You weren't necessarily told what to do every day, right?
Yeah,
and
autonomy,
so that's
lack
what I
of.
think about.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, in the flip side of the coin too, like everyone can think of the best team they've ever been on. They can think of the worst or most toxic team they've ever been on, or even not even toxic, but just like the most bleh team that you've been on, right? Which is also frustrating. Like I've worked on teams like that where there's nothing like bad. There's like it's not like people are toxic. People aren't yelling at each other. There's not like bad feelings towards coworkers. There's cool work, even a shared purpose in the mission of the what the team's doing, the product, the service, the organization. But it's just met. Like there's no energy behind it, and that's no fun. Like no, I suppose some people don't mind that because they just like the comfort of it. But for high performers, they're never going to want to be in that environment because they're energized by doing stuff and innovating and creating and having fun with the work. And when you're in a blah environment, it just gets stale and boring and it's not fun. And so certainly toxic, we want to avoid that, but we also want to avoid the blah culture, right?
I love that. Avoid the blah.
Avoid the blah, and then get like to your point, like some of the best teams we've ever been a part of. And hopefully everyone has had the privilege of being a part of a really great team. If not, I'm sorry, and I hope that you have that sometime soon, or maybe you can create it for your own team. But I can think of some really great teams that I've been a part of, and I would highlight exactly the same types of elements that you just focused on, and ultimately, like when it comes back to this, like in-person, remote, hybrid work question, I don't. In my experience, at least, it hasn't mattered. Like it hasn't really mattered which of those modalities or what mix of those modalities, we functioned in, because it was really about the connection, the trust, and the work and the passion that we all brought to the table. And yes, is it nice to be able to meet in person with folks? Even if it's just from time to time, absolutely. But it's really more about intentionality of how you go about connecting is what I've found. So I'm a believer personally, and from a lot of the research I've seen, I think this backs it up, that really it's about intentionality around connection and shared meaning and purpose and team building. And in some ways, it might be harder to do in a fully remote environment. But it's still very possible. I've experienced that in fully remote teams that are just awesome. And I've also had in-person teams that are totally bleh or just totally like not inspiring in the least. And so there's nothing necessarily about just the proximity, though proximity can help when it's leveraged well, right? So even return to office, whether I was just reading a study the other day, where it was looking at the correlation between in-office work versus, actual business outcomes. And lo and behold, there's no like compelling correlation, even certainly not causation, but not even compelling correlation. It's all scattered, and there's so many other variables at play as to whether or not, being in person or being remote or whatever ends up working for that organization or for that team. And the proximity itself isn't the driving force. It's the intentionality behind it. It's how the manager manages and how much autonomy they give folks and how much trust is built amongst their team. All of those elements, those are the things that are going to really matter the most.
Right. Yeah. And talking a little more about your, intentionality and being purposeful. As an example, we have maybe like 80 or 90 employees here in Omaha. And then we also have employees scattered across 25 states that are really just them working from home. And so we really have to think about the experience for for those that are in Omaha that might never come into the office, those that are pretty hybrid, and then also all of our remote works is what we call our employees. But next week's our holiday party, and so we're actually flying people in across the country, and we're trying to make sure they have memorable experiences while they're here because, it might be the first time they're seeing some of their teammates in person, and we're doing, next year company retreat, and the focus is on memories and kind of lighting the way and making sure all of that is very experience driven. So I wanted to add that.
Yeah, I love that. And again, maybe beating a dead horse here, but I think it's really, really important to be intentional, but to be strategic about those opportunities. When you do have those opportunities, that you fully leverage them. I've also been, I've worked with teams that are somewhat hybrid, mostly remote, some in person. Maybe they'll do offsite, combined retreats from time to time, those sorts of things. And I've seen them go super well, be fully leveraged. Like, it's just awesome. It's energizing. People build relationships or strengthen their relationships. And then I've seen them where they're, again, completely meh. Like, it's just like, you're just sitting there, just like, why are we here? Like, this literally,
this is a waste of time.
It's a waste of resources. It's including time, it's a waste of everything. And that's really frustrating. And again, coming back to, it depends on temperament, personality, probably career stage, life stage. Like, there's different things that drive different people at different times. But generally speaking, for high performers, they don't want to be wasting time. They want to do things that matter and they know that relationships matter. And so, I've seen people who, they may not be the most outgoing people. They may, be introverted or whatever, but they still know how important those relationships are, and they want to work on building them. And so they're okay investing in that if and when it's designed well, and when there's truly opportunity to do it. And again, just haphazardly throwing people together and saying, okay, we're all, in town together. So that means magically somehow we're going to all of a sudden just like be besties and be able to like produce way more, output. That's silly. And high performers know that, and they expect more of that, more than that. And so, coming back to what you said, I think, ultimately, as we are just thoughtful and strategic and purposeful around how we design these types of engagements and interactions and culture building and team building and relationship building and trust building, that we can do it well, and we can actually really, really make a huge difference. What are you seeing in organizations you're working with, clients, et cetera, around what organizations are actively doing right now to create and maintain and sustain the magnetic culture?
Yeah, we've, through, again, our research, we survey or have more than 10,000 organizations and data in our database that we can, look at to kind of put a definition behind thriving teams. And so I would say they're not necessarily a program that HR is running. I think we can tend to want to do that, but they are more environments that managers can try to create. And so there's kind of these 4 conditions or 4 things that we're looking at to kind of define what a thriving team is. And we're actively working on this now internally as well. But I'd say the first one is that people are aligned. So they understand that their work is important and how it connects to the strategy, and they know what success looks like. And it's clear, and managers are effectively connecting the why into all of that. The second part, and like a piece that leaders could do now, is just making sure that people feel empowered. Teams they're trusted. They have the right tools in place. They can take accountability to act. I think standard HR practice could be a once a year performance review or a once a year survey. And instead of that, feedback should always be on. We should be very comfortable giving feedback, providing feedback, acting on the feedback. And HR should be empowering teams to do that and give them insights and give them data so that they can, make change on their team. The third area I would say is growing. You talked a little earlier about top performers want to perform. I always like to say that winners like to be surrounded by winners. You don't want to be with them.
People tend to play up or play down, depending on who they're surrounded by, right?
That's right. Yeah. And so your top employees, they always want to be growing, and They don't necessarily always need a promotion, but what is that, daily development, coaching, feedback, and learning that they can get in their daily work? And then last is just making sure that your teams feel valued. And within that means, recognition doesn't have to necessarily be like happy 5-year anniversary and that's it. But like,
here's a card and a pin.
Yeah, here's your badge. But like, what are the small things that you can celebrate, as a team, and figure out how they want to be recognized in the first place? Do they like public, private? Do they love being told in front of the whole company? And then another part of feeling valued is fair pay. I think, with a lot of the pay transparency laws going into effect across the country, this is super important. And then they also want just meaningful appreciation and making sure that's built into the culture.
Yeah. Well, just a quick example of that. So my wife and I, we're both professors, and we both are at the same university, and we're just down the hall from each other. We teach in different disciplines, but she's awesome, and she has been highly recognized for her teaching. And she hates public attention. So, she gets embarrassed enough by just winning an award and then like having to go to something where she gets it. But then like there is, kind of like an all hands, like all the faculty and staff at the beginning of the school year, and the dean gets up and then, highlights, my wife. And she couldn't have been more mortified. Like,
right.
It was a nice gesture. Like he was trying to acknowledge and highlight her. And he wants to promote good teaching, and like there's cultural reasons for him to do that. But from like a strictly like motivational perspective for my wife, all it was uncomfortable, and she hated it. Like it was not what she wanted or needed. And and he talked with her afterwards, and he kind of apologized, sorry for the big to do and blah blah blah. And she it's fine, like life moves on, and no big deal. But it certainly wasn't the thing that was most important or impactful to her. Similarly, another example for myself, and this is one where not to throw my dean under the bus, so I'll give a good example. Like we were in a meeting once, and we're talking about how can you recognize employees in ways that matter to them. Ways that will reinforce the culture, ways that will reinforce their own personal striving and motivation. And I just mentioned, for me, I'm a family man. Like I have 6 kids. My wife and I live a mile from campus. Our kids have been raised on this campus. We go to events on the campus all the time. And, I'm just like, I love doing stuff with my family on campus. And like, we go to basketball games and soccer games and volleyball games and whatever. And, then that triggered in his mind. He's like, oh, I have courtside seats as part of like the dean's office, like package. Like we have courtside seats, and maybe, for people who really like that kind of stuff, maybe we could like from time to time, give someone some tickets to be in courtside seats at a game during the season. And a couple weeks later, he offered that to me, and I was able to take, myself and several of my kids, and we sat courtside. We got to get all the extra food, and we got like all that kind of stuff. And it didn't really cost him anything. He already had those tickets. He actually wasn't able to go that day anyways. And that was like so cool for my kids. And, frankly, I actually like sitting higher up because I feel like I see better. But like from just the cool factor of like being there, being front and center, being right in front of everybody, like that was something that was meaningful to my kids. So it was meaningful to me far more than if they would have given me a small bonus or whatever, And so like, and to his credit, like he was actively trying to understand what those things might be for different people so that he could do them and provide them for them. And I think a good leader, an intentional leader, tries to do that. Like we don't always get it right. Sometimes we do this, we make my wife uncomfortable or whatever. But if you're purposeful and intentional around it, there's a lot you can do, and a lot of times it doesn't cost any extra money. It's just being strategic.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, and you think of like the best recognition, it might be a bonus. It might be some of that stuff, but a lot of times it's the memories that you were able to create, or, oh, they gave me a gift card to like a local restaurant, and now I was able to take out my family and, create a memory there. And that's it's even just like over the holidays, what gifts are you giving? It makes me think of that. Like, can you use it to create memories in a way or an experience for people? Because clearly that's what people remember and are thankful for.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, this has just been a great conversation. I know there's a whole lot more we could talk about, but I think this has been at least a good start in people wrapping their heads around this idea of a magnetic culture. Again, to reiterate, like one where alignment exists, person job fit, person team fit, person organization fit, values alignment, purpose alignment, meaning alignment. All of that is so important. And building trust to build relationships so that
Right.
we can satisfy that like innate human need as social animals for us to have connection, to have people that we can be excited to go to work with each and every day. And whether that's hybrid, remote, fully in person, or whatever is less important than just being intentional about how we structure opportunities for collaboration and trust building and team building and all those sorts of things. We truly can create a magnetic culture in every organization. And I think, man, would the world be such a better place if we had more of that surrounding us in our homes, in our communities, in our workplaces, all around us, and just lean back into that human connection and how important that is. As we wrap up today, I just wanted to give you a chance to share with the audience how they can connect with you, find out more about your work, your team, and then give us the final word for today.
Sure. You can find me on LinkedIn. It's just searching Cyndi, Cyndi. I always have to clarify it's with a Y. And then Wenninghoff. And then I work at Quantum Workplace. That's quantumworkplace.com. And that's where you'll find most of everything that we do, and love to connect with anyone on LinkedIn. And I would just leave you and your audience with just thinking about one small thing that you can do to try to be more aligned, try to be more empowered, and try to grow and make your team feel valued, to create that, that team that's thriving.
Yeah, absolutely. Do something small today. And
Right.
It doesn't need to be huge. It doesn't need to be a grand gesture, but consistency and intentionality makes all the difference in the world. Cyndi, it's been a real pleasure. I encourage the audience to reach out, to get connected, find out more about what Cyndi can do for you. And as always, I hope everyone can stay healthy and safe. They can find meaning and purpose at work each and every day. And I hope you all have a great week. Thanks for joining us for this episode of the podcast. We hope you stay healthy and safe, and please join us again soon.